On the surface, it may seem like BDSM punishments are just about pain or control, but it's so much more than that. A truly powerful punishment scene isn't about making someone suffer, it's about shaping behavior, reinforcing boundaries, and deepening trust. It's where discipline meets desire, and emotional intelligence turns correction into transformation. Want to know how to make your punishments unforgettable? Let's jump into it today. Punishment in a Dom-Sub relationship is not arbitrary or rooted in cruelty. It serves critical functions that are essential for maintaining the health, structure, and emotional depth of the dynamic. When approached with emotional intelligence and a trauma-informed mindset, punishment becomes a tool, not for harm, but for growth, accountability, and deeper connection. Understanding why we punish is just as important as how we do it. So here are the three main objectives of punishment in a Dom-Sub relationship. 1, to reinforce the boundary. A rule without enforcement is merely a suggestion. In the context of BDSM, rules aren't just about control. They're agreements that create safety, structure, and clarity. When a submissive crosses a line, a punishment scene acts as a reset button, reinforcing that boundaries exist for a reason and must be respected. 2, honor the dynamic. Punishment isn't just about correcting behavior. It's about reaffirming the power exchange. In DS relationships, both dominant and submissive thrive within clearly defined roles. Punishment underscores this dynamic, reminding both parties of their responsibilities. The dominant to lead with intention, and the submissive to follow with devotion. And 3, to train the submissive. Every punishment is an opportunity for behavioral conditioning, not just to discourage undesirable actions, but to cultivate self-awareness, discipline, and emotional maturity. Punishment should never be about humiliation for humiliation's sake. It should be purposeful, guiding the submissive toward becoming the best version of themselves within the dynamic. From a trauma-informed perspective, it's incredibly important to keep two principles in tension simultaneously. The first being the understanding that, as I often say, people do not change until their lack of change has cost them enough. Thus, a well-crafted punishment should force the submissive to confront the cost of their actions, whether that cost is physical discomfort, emotional reflection, or the temporary loss of privileges. But for submissives with trauma histories, punishment must be especially mindful. The dominant's role is not to trigger unresolved wounds, but to create an environment where accountability feels empowering, not shaming. This requires clear communication, aftercare, and an understanding that discipline is about correction, not condemnation. It's also crucial to distinguish between punishment and funishment for purposes of effectiveness and clarity. Funishment is any form of pain or degradation that the submissive genuinely enjoys, even despite feigned protests or playful pushback. Punishment, on the other hand, is any form of pain or degradation that the submissive genuinely finds distasteful, but still consents to. The key is genuine discomfort, whether physical, psychological, or emotional. If the submissive enjoys it, it ceases to be punishment and becomes indulgence. Now, the challenge for the dominant is identifying what truly constitutes punishment for their submissive, as every individual's threshold and psychology differ. Since everything we do on this channel is from a trauma-informed perspective, we must discuss what qualifies a punishment as healthy, and my three guidelines here are proportionate, personal, and painful. Proportionate means that the punishment must fit the severity of the transgression. A minor lapse in protocol should not be met with extreme discipline, just as blatant defiance should not be lightly corrected. Effective punishment is also personal or tailored to the submissive's personality, limits, and emotional makeup. Some submissives fear isolation. Others dread verbal reprimands. The more personal, the more impactful. No pun intended. And painful. But pain is not just physical. Some submissives would rather endure a flogging than experience cold disapproval. The most effective punishment targets what truly hurts, be it psychological, emotional, or social discomfort. Additionally, for punishments to have the desired effect, they must follow another set of guidelines surrounding desire and consent. Punishment cannot be imposed without prior agreement. The submissive must understand that by entering the dynamic, they are submitting to correction when needed. However, there's a critical distinction between dislike and consent. A submissive may prefer not to be ignored, denied orgasms, or made to write lines. However, a lack of preference doesn't mean a lack of consent. Just because a submissive dislikes or would rather avoid a certain punishment doesn't mean it violates their boundaries or autonomy. Preference reflects comfort. It does not determine consent. Let me say that again. Preference reflects comfort. It doesn't determine consent. A submissive can fully consent to things they don't prefer. True consent is a completely mindful, willing, and uncoerced choice to say yes, and the ability to revoke that yes at any time without fear of repercussions. A submissive may not enjoy a punishment, but their consent remains intact because they've agreed to the dynamic, the consequences, the dominant's authority, and this specific punishment. Consent is about choice, not comfort. This is why before delving into discipline, it's crucial to ensure that the submissive knows what they did wrong, acknowledges why it was wrong, and accepts the consequence as part of the agreement. A dominant who punishes without explaining fosters anxiety, confusion, distrust, and fear, not growth. That's why the goal of punishment is not to create fear, but to inspire change. If a submissive is being punished but doesn't internalize the lesson, the scene, the punishment, everything loses its meaning. Effective punishment results in a submissive who regrets the misstep, learns from the experience, and actively works to avoid repeating the behavior. The ultimate punishment scene is not about cruelty. It's about consequence. It's an artful balance between power and care, discipline and devotion. And when punishment is approached with emotional and erotic intelligence, it becomes more than just correction. It transforms into a tool that reinforces boundaries, deepens submission, builds trusts, and ignites the submissive's desire to serve. And if you want to be the kind of dominant who doesn't just control the body, but commands the mind, join my monthly erotic intelligence masterclasses on Patreon, where I teach you how to use emotional intelligence to build unshakable authority, deepen submission, and create magnetic, lasting connections. This isn't just theory, it's real strategies to make your dominance irresistible. Ready to master the psychology of power? Click the link in the description and start leading with precision and purpose. Because punishment is a language. And if you're ready to master the art of discipline, unlock the tools you need with my powerful punishments bundle exclusively on Patreon. Inside, you'll find 130 punishment activities designed to challenge, correct, and captivate your submissive. A color-coded reference key for quick and effective scene planning, comprehensive BDSM punishment guide to deepen your understanding of discipline, 35 erotic ways to deny a submissive, 150 degradation ideas, plus full-length erotic stories to inspire your next scene. Join me on Patreon and take your discipline to the next level. And be sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because next week I'm sharing 25 practical punishment ideas to use in your dynamic.